Thank you, everyone, for joining. I'm Erica Cosina. I'm an independent consultant. I support nonprofits with project and marketing support. And I'm glad to see some familiar faces here and some new people. I'd like to start by going around and doing some introductions just so everyone knows who's in the room. And then Ken's going to do a short presentation about vibe coding, and there will be time for Q&A afterwards. And honestly, when Ken said, I'm going to do a thing on vibe coding, I was like, oh, okay, well, that's not for me. I'm not an engineer. Like, never mind. And then Ken said, I just built a whole website with vibe coding instantly. And then I got interested. And then he told me today that he managed to like build out a presentation with vibe coding very easily. And so now I'm interested in vibe coding, even though I'm still not an engineer. And I hope you're all interested too. When you say your name, please say your name, your organization, and just let us know if you have any experience with vibe coding. And I'll start with Tom Durkin. Hi, Tom.
Hi, Tom Durkin. I'm the director of the No Place to Go project. Uh, I've done some vibe coding. I last year sort of figured it out on my own, and without Ken's help, I was able to make it online. I have a paired forced choice program that I wrote, or AI Claude wrote for me, uh, that helps you compare, makes you make a prioritized list of things that you want to compare and see which is most important to you.
Nice. Oh, great. Well, I look forward to hearing more about that. Anjali.
If I can find it, I'll try to publish
Hello,
it.
everyone. So I'm Anjali and I'm coming from Ananda Worldwide. So we, teach meditation and yoga. And we're located north of Nevada City. If you're familiar with the tulips, we're kind of at the end of our tulip season. And personally, I actually don't have experience in vibe coding. So I was really interested in this meetup to get an intro and start to experiment.
Me too. Okay, Sanford.
So, my name is Sanford Anderson. I'm with a nonprofit called Global Family and another, I'm going to say wannabe, uh, coming into formation, a nonprofit called The Village Project here locally. And I have no experience with vibe coding, and I use ChatGPT a lot, and I'm interested in the next step.
And when you say here locally, are you referring to Nevada County?
Yes, oh, I should say that, yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you. All right, Courtney.
Hi, everybody. I'm Courtney Allshouse, and I work for the Community Foundation of Broward in Florida. We're in Fort Lauderdale, and I have zero experience in vibe coding, but I have taken a couple of Ken's workshops, and I'm just interested.
Perfect. Thank you. Glenn.
Hi, Erica. My name's Glenn Stump, and I'm a programmer. And I've had done some vibe coding, kind of backwards, building games. I work a number of nonprofits in the Massachusetts area, and one thing is building uh, programming classes for kids. So I'm using vibe coding to build a program and then break down instructions so the kids can manually create the same game. So it's kind of a backwards way of using it.
Wow, interesting. Well, I'm curious to hear about all these projects. Okay, thank you. Linda. Linda, you're muted.
Thank you and good morning. My name is Linda LeBou and I'm the Executive Director of Sight Word Busters, a local nonprofit organization that helps boost early literacy skills throughout Placer County. And I do not have any experience with vibe coding, but anything that Ken has to share with us, I'm interested in.
I agree. Thank you, Linda. Okay, Mark.
Yes, I am Mark Zara. I'm not yet connected to any particular nonprofit. I'm still on the hunt for where to plug in my capabilities. And I have absolutely no experience with vibe coding. But I've heard amazing things along the lines of what you mentioned, that websites can be stood up pretty quickly. So I am all ears. And I'll just second what was said before, that anything Ken does is just spectacular. So
Right.
I'm here
No,
for a
no,
repeat.
no pressure for the presentation you're
Yeah.
about to make.
It
Yeah.
better be spectacular, Ken. Hey,
It's gonna
Mark,
be
since
awesome.
you have an audience of nonprofit organizations here, do you want to just briefly say what you do? What are those skills that you're hoping to plug into a worthy cause?
I'm in Houston, Texas, and so I suspect there could actually be some very local ones, and there's probably a local element to what I would be seeking. I have a lot of experience with program management, project management, spent a number of years with Cisco, the food company, delivering food all around the country and the world, and also most recently digital experience as far as working with suppliers and getting their information and their data flowing into the Cisco website.
Oh, nice. Well, then you know what I'm going to do next? I'm going to ask Amy Retzler to introduce herself and talk about her organization since I see a little synergy there. You're mute, Amy.
I'm so sorry I'm late to the party. I wasn't sure I could join, but yes, I'm Amy Retzler. I own a consulting firm, Amy Retzler Consulting, and I've been in the nonprofit realm for the last 18 years, actually. And I'm sorry I didn't quite catch the last part of the question, Erica.
Oh, um, what do you have any experience with vibe coding?
Oh, I feel like I should, but I don't. So that's why I'm here.
Perfect. All right. Thank you, Amy.
Yeah.
Okay. Monroe.
Hi there. My name is Monroe Lovelady. I'm the board president for In Concert Sierra, classical music organization in Grass Valley, California. Slash Crown Point Venues was building a new performing arts center in Grass Valley. So I was lucky enough to have taken Ken's first course, AI, Introduction to AI. I really, really enjoyed it and learned a lot. I thought I knew a lot, but I really didn't, as I discovered. So highly recommend his introductory course if you haven't taken it.
Thanks,
And I
Monroe.
know I know nothing about vibe coding, but I've done a lot of coding over the years in Java and VB and other programming languages. So I'm hoping it'll be similar.
Yeah, I'm hoping it'll blow your mind. Okay. Is it Roni or Ronnie?
Yeah, hi, it's Ronnie. I'm joining you all from Boston, Massachusetts. I heard about this because I just reconnected with Ken. We knew one another in our late 20s. So nice little reunion here. I volunteer at local rowing and sailing clubs, all of which could use, improvements to their websites and nice tools like reservation systems for boats, etc. So I know there's applicability here. And I also volunteered at a local med tech program for high schoolers. So anyway, looking forward to this.
Thanks. Do you have any experience with vibe coding?
No. I mean, I play around a little bit, but nothing I can show off. So this will also at the introductory level at this point.
Great. Thank you.
And Ronnie,
Shivani. Oh, go
Ronnie
ahead.
one time saved my life in the San Francisco Bay when I was about to get swept onto the rocks because I knew nothing about windsurfing, and she's like a goddess, and she just cruised over and grabbed me and dragged me away from what would have been really an
Oh my
unpleasant.
goodness.
Yes.
I wish she would have been there when I flipped a rowing shell in the San Francisco Bay. It all worked out, but still.
All right, so I'm a rower at open water rowing. I've done
Oh.
some rowing there as well. So yeah, good. Nice
We have
nice
a
to meet
lot.
you all. I also did work in video, and so Grass Valley is an area that, I've worked with that company some. So anyway, it's really nice to meet you all. This is great.
All right, Shalati.
Hi, hi everybody. I'm Shabati Karki Pearl. I work at the local government, Nevada County Recreation Program, and a lot of my job is looking for grants. I've not done vibe coding. I've used AI a lot over the last 3 years. My son does vibe coding with Python primarily, so I'm very interested to learn more.
Thanks. Thank you. Did I miss anyone, or are we through with introductions?
Erica, this is Monroe again. Can I just jump in? I wanted to say something to Ronnie. I heard her mention that she worked for Grass Valley USA. So the new Performing Arts Center that we're building is actually in the building previously owned by Grass Valley USA.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
All right, Ken, would you like to introduce yourself and take it away?
I think pretty much everybody here knows me, other than maybe Sanford. I don't know. I think everybody has either worked with me or had dinner with me or taken one of my classes or so. So yeah, I think you're all up to speed on me. Oh, real quick, this meetup is 45 minutes. And I said a 45-minute because I'm like, people feel like that's a smaller bite-sized morsel than like an hour, but we're always running up against the hour limit or the 45-minute limit, including like today, it's likely we will. So by a quick show of hands, given a choice of 45 minutes or an hour for a meetup, who here would prefer sticking with the 45-minute format? By a show of hands, or just raise your hand. I mean, Amy says 45 minutes. All right, sorry, Amy, the tyranny of democracy. All right, who here would be in favor of a 1 hour meetup? I guess we're going with an hour. All right. Good. Well, let's get this part. Nope. I want this. And then I'm going to do this kind of thing. So I can see your faces. All right. So vibe coding for nonprofits. We're going to do like the little level set. What is vibe coding? Basically, it's again, it's the revenge of the liberal arts degree. Like it's being able to describe what you want in clear English, and then AI builds it for you. And then you look at it and you're like, yeah, that's not right. And there's a bug here. And it fixes the bugs, it changes the appearance, and you review the new version and you iterate with it. Just like in the training classes that I teach about like that iteration with AI, like you give it your best guess prompt, it gives you some results, and you're like, no, yeah, close, but, and you iterate. Same thing for vibe coding. The cool thing is no code is needed. You describe what you want in English, right? And AI writes the code for you. In fact, some of these vibe coding platforms, you can't even edit the code if you wanted to. There are some startups now that have experienced programmers on their team, and they're like, we are never writing a line of code. The only thing we do is we create the specification, we create the test cases for validating when the AI has got it right, and we iterate with AI. We are not going to touch the code. It's fundamental change. What's really amazing to me when I first started using AI for vibe coding is how, in some ways, AI is so much better than a person. Like when I ask AI to build some web page or whatever, it's amazing how it makes good guesses about things like what text should be on the page and the color and the styling, etc. If I was relying on a typical website developer to do that, it would be awful. But AI actually does a pretty solid job of like where you don't completely specify exactly what it looks like, it makes pretty good guesses. Like normally when you're working with a web app developer, you've got to give them a solid spec. Like you've got to give them mock-ups of what every page looks like. You don't have to do that with AI. And the last thing is to get started, all you really need is like a paid Claude account or ChatGPT account. If you already have that, and I say $20 a month, but the nonprofit pricing is $8 a month, that's like a tall latte a month for having a really experienced developer at your beck and call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I mean, talk about your value deal. Yes, Monroe, you have a question.
One of these days I'll figure out how to unmute myself. I'm sorry. Does it also work on Gemini, Ken?
Not so well. It's Gemini doesn't have like sort of built-in integrated vibe coding support, though they're adding it. I mean, Everything I'm telling you is accurate as of 10:16 a.m. Pacific time on April 16th. Like things
Okay.
change so fast, right? Um,
Okay. Good.
sure. So why do nonprofits care about this? I mean, if you need to build something, you're talking about hours, not months of creating some custom thing on your site. And okay, I say no cost to prototype. Yes, there's some time you're spending on this for sure, but it's nowhere near. Oh, how do you get the nonprofit discount for Claude? You go to Goodstack, which is this organization that validates nonprofits for companies. And once you have signed in with Goodstack and gone through their validation process where they check you against the IRS database, then you have the option to apply for discounts with companies, with OpenAI for ChatGPT, with Claude, with Google for Workspace, with Intuit for QuickBase. Um, yeah, it's everybody should instantly do that if you haven't done it already. The deals are incredible. I pay, I think, $30 a year for QuickBooks instead of $60 a month because of nonprofit pricing. I mean, it's amazing. All right. And again, it's like $20 a month or $8 a month, right? Like it's an incredible value deal. So what's the problem that you're trying to solve with vibe coding? For most nonprofits, the classic problems are like, okay, static web pages are kind of boring. If you're using like Google Forms to collect information, they aren't really customizable. They're very limited, obviously, like just here's my question and answer options and it generates a result. If you want custom software, now you've got expensive developers. And if you're talking about like trying to use some off-the-shelf tool, it has its own set ways of doing things that typically don't match exactly what you want, or even close to what you want. So the solution, vibe coding, I describe what I want and it builds it. Monday.com is a company that makes software that people can use for like tracking issues, managing things. A group of people decided, like, let's see if we can create something that's similar to Monday.com. Like, I don't know, it was like over a weekend. And they did using vibe coding. And Monday morning, Monday.com stock took a major hit, along with a whole bunch of other SaaS companies. They called it, I think, the SaaS apocalypse. Like these software as a service companies, people are realizing that as vibe coding gets more and more powerful, the need to spend $75 a month with a Salesforce plan may not be there anymore if you can actually use vibe coding to create the thing that is exactly what you need. So that's why they took those hits. Now, there's a lot of subtleties there, but it is an important point. Oh, and a great example of this. Harvard Business School professor has a class called War and Peace. He wanted to create a website for his alumni of his class. So it's got login, you got to register, you log in, you have discussion forums, etc. He worked with Claude to create this. And it handled things like there's a backend database and there's authentication and there's encrypting of passwords and there's, mobile friendly and structured flow discussions. He's like, I didn't know what any of that meant. But what he was he knew exactly what he wanted to create. He's a pretty smart guy. He knew how to ask, he knew how to follow directions that Claude gave him about like, oh, you want a custom domain? Here's how you do it. He knew how to ask Claude questions when he was confused, and he was willing to iterate. So what he was able to do in 6 hours, iterating with Claude, giving it input, having Claude fix 40 or 50 bugs, was create this fully functioning website. And then he took the code for that website and he gave it to ChatGPT and he said, estimate what this would take doing traditional development. And ChatGPT said 6 to 12 weeks, $50,000 to $120,000 if you were doing it in the US, maybe $20,000 to $45,000 if you offshored it. And that's what he did in 6 hours. And he's not a developer, right? He's a Harvard Business School professor. He's a smart guy and he knew what he wanted to create, but still, that's why this is game changing. All right. So what is a smart web page versus a form? I'm using forms as an example here. There's lots of things you can do with vibe coding, but let's talk about forms, right? So a standard form, same questions for everybody. There's not really conditional logic where things change based on answers. You don't have like any sophisticated calculations going on. It's pretty generic. It looks similar to every other form. So with a smart web app, as the user answers questions, it can adapt, right? So it asks different questions based on the answers to previous questions. So there's this branching logic. You can have it generate custom output, and it's a custom branded experience. So as an example, I created an AI readiness form where nonprofits could assess their AI readiness, like how up to speed are they on AI? And the very first question was, what size is your organization? And based on that, it would change what questions it asked, because some of those questions are not appropriate if you're a one-person operation, right? The board level oversight-ish, whatever, compliance with EU standards. No. Um, and that took like a couple hours, and I integrated it with Google Sheets. So when people fill this thing out, I get an entry in a Google Sheet. I also get an email that they filled out the form, and they get a score with justification for their AI readiness. So that's a perfect example of a smart form. And I could demo that if we have time. So let's talk about a demo that for something I did for a local, what's called a business igniter class. So this is a course that teaches people how to start small businesses. And I'm supposed to come in and give a demo on AI. So I'm looking for an idea for what to demo. And I have a friend whose name is Glenn, who's on this call. And he said, you know, it'd be really cool. And we weren't talking about this idea. He just said out of the blue, really cool to have a t-shirt with things on it that would be conversation starters, especially when I'm traveling. And I'm like, ooh, I could use that as my idea. I'm going to show you briefly what I did to get to this point. But ultimately, I created this website, Vibe Coding, called Custom Connection. I'm going to point out a couple things. All of this, like where your stories start real conversations, answer a few fun questions, all the color theming here, etc. I didn't do any of that. I don't know how to do that. AI just came up with that, right? These little things down here that as you hover over them, they move a little bit, you know, the word cloud, the categories, etc. I didn't do any of that. It just said, yeah, this would be nice to have for your front page. And it did it for me. And then you start designing your t-shirt. So start on the t-shirt, and it's got this list of categories with questions. Where were you born? And I could say Whittier. Favorite city you've ever traveled to? I don't know, Barcelona. And I could say Whittier is really important to me. Hobbies, our primary hobby is like teaching nonprofits. And I'm going to say that's a core value. And I've got like pets, I don't know, dog, and breed is mutt, and the name is Reshi, right? So I'm answering questions about this, right? Sports and fitness, sport you currently play, no judging, pickleball, whatever. So I answer these questions, and pickleball is, I don't know, that's really strong for me. And then I click on preview my shirt. So I told it that I wanted a word cloud. You'll see the process here, but it's like, oh, here's the front, here's the back of the shirt. Oh, you don't like that? Let's reshuffle that. What color do you want? I didn't ask it to come up with a color picker for my t-shirt design. I can edit my answers. It shows me my answers over here. I didn't ask it to do that. It just said, yeah, that would be important. And then I can go order the shirt, and it's like, oh, what sizes? I gave it no input on this form at all, right? It's like, here's the sizes you should have. Here are options with pricing. Um, you fill this form out, you got an order total. I can say any special instructions, and I can say place the order. And it says, oh, you got to fill in all the required fields. It's checking to make sure I put all the things in here like email, first name, etc. And if I do that, it pops up a dialog that says, your order number 10275. Congratulations on ordering your custom conversation starter t-shirt. Okay, I'm going to show you how I did that. Oh, so here's how I did it. The very first thing I started off with was actually I created a document using Claude that described the business. So I'm using AI as a thought partner. I'm like, I have this idea. I had to do competitive analysis, pricing, everything. I did after it created a business plan, I asked Claude to do a pre-mortem, which is so cool, where I said, you're an expert advisor for small businesses. It's 18 months from now. The business failed. What are the three most likely reasons why it failed? And it came up with these three reasons, and I used that to then adjust the plan. So essentially, I'm doing biased prompting that I tell people don't do, like don't give the AI an outcome. But here, biased prompting is really good. It failed. Explain why. It's like, okay, I'm going to help you. I'm going to help explain why. So I have a business plan, and that business plan is something that I attached to this. But one of the things I did is help me brainstorm on categories of information, et cetera, and come up with questions for it. So you saw in the website, there was that whole set of categories and different questions for each one. That is what Claude came up with. I said, create a document for it. It created this document on the right, right? It had like UX principles. It had all these different categories with the questions. All right. So this then is what I fed to Claude Cowork to actually create the site. So if we go over to, this is the Claude desktop application. I was using this instead of an artifact, Claude Artifact. You could do either one, but you can see here, I've attached some files, this custom connection t-shirt. Here, custom connection t-shirt business overview. Like this is a file that describes the business that came from that initial round with Claude. And I also have the t-shirt personas. And like Claude's like, okay, I'm going to create, this design, and it creates a design. And I look at it and I'm like, I want a word cloud. I also want to have like this thing about how strongly they feel about each answer. Use that to make some words bigger than others. Have some of the words be vertical, etc. This is where you see like Claude being a little sycophantic. Oh, that's a great upgrade, man. You're rocking it, Ken. But whatever. It rewrote it. And it came up with a new version. And then I gave it this, here is where I gave it that set of categories and questions, that document we were just looking at, right? That I created with Claude that said, come up with all the categories and questions. And I said, use this set of questions organized by categories to redo the website. I had a couple other tweaks to it. It did all that. And then I said, I wanted it to create an index file. And we'll talk about, okay, so it creates a file called index.html. So this is a file that contains all of the website design and the code that implemented everything you saw. It's a self-contained file. This is the simplest way to do vibe coding. So I get this file, and this file then is something that I can host at a site called Netlify. There's a site called Netlify. You give it a file, and it creates essentially a website page you can click on, right? So it creates this custom connection.netlify.app. That's the URL to it. I could pay some money for a custom domain, so it looks more like it's actually part of my business site. But seriously, I dragged a folder with that one file in it onto here. It's a free account. And 5 seconds later, I have this web page running, right? So amazing. Okay. Erica's just let me know we're already like within 15 minutes of the end of the presentation. Okay, so let's do something for nonprofits. This is something I'm just like, whatever, let me just try something tonight. So this is last night. One of the people who's going to be attending was from this organization called Center for Ecoliteracy. So I worked with Gemini to do a deep research report on them. And I'll show you that report, but it comes up with like, what do they care about? What I wanted to do was create a smart donation page, which is sort of like a donor journey. Ask them questions, adjust as they answer the questions, and come up with finally hey, for X amount, you would be doing Y, where that's in an area they care about, right? That was the goal. So, one-time monthly, price range for donation, show personalized impact. So and I'm using Gemini to come up with estimates for what different amounts of money would do in each of these categories. Now, that's clearly something that if I actually had somebody from the organization, they would review and edit that to make sure the numbers and the messages made sense. This is just like me and Gemini making stuff up like best guess. Okay. So what happened as a result of that? Here's the report that I generated with Gemini. So I'm using Gemini to do a deep research. And it comes up with a report that includes, importantly, this table on the right that shows, essentially for different levels of donations, what the impact is. So if you're talking about doing legislative advocacy, here's different dollar amounts and here's the output. Here's the impact of it. Right? It came up with some table. And then I saved that as a Google Drive document, a comprehensive analysis for the Center of Ecoliteracy. That's the document. Then I went over to Claude Artifacts and I said, I want to build a website, an interactive website. So in Claude Artifacts, it's like, what do you want to create? I'm like, apps and websites. It's like, what kind of thing? Describe it for me. And this is the prompt, right? This is the prompt that I use. I said, here's a website for this organization. It guides a potential donor through the process of identifying what they care about and the impact of different levels of giving. This ultimately results in a clickable link that takes them to the actual donation page, right? So that's the goal. Then I referenced that a comprehensive analysis document that's in my Google Drive. So because I've hooked up Google Drive to Claude, I can just give it the name of it and it'll go and find it. I told it where the final donation page for that organization is. It's at thiskindest.com, et cetera. It's like, great concept. You're still rocking it, Ken. A donor journey tool. But it's interesting. It calls it a donor journey tool, right? That's what this website really is. And that's a great description of it. It came up with like, here's the flow. Like, here's how we're going to do it. I sniffed at this. I'm like, yeah, okay, maybe that would work. I didn't think too hard about it. I'm like, that's a good start. Go build it. And it came up with version 1 here. And I looked at this and I'm like, okay, this is the starting page. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do over here on the right. Like, what are these things on the right? So I'm like, the first page asks questions, but there aren't any radio buttons to the left of each question. Like, what thing am I selecting? So it came up with a new version that looked almost exactly the same. I'm like, what the heck? I said, make each question look like a button. So it said, okay, I can do that. I'm like, yeah, but I don't need the radio button now, like the little thing to the left of the text. Also, the font size should be larger. The text in the green buttons should use a darker font color, right? So it came up with that, which is better, right? Now it looks like real buttons. And now I can actually fool around with it over here. What matters most? Let's say a child gets a nourishing meal. Where do you believe change happens? I'm like, I look at this and I'm like, well, it actually happens everywhere. It's like, where do I think change happens? What's the most important place for change? So I asked it to change that question. And it said, okay, what matters most to you? I click here, where do you believe is the most important place for making change? Right? So it immediately updated the UI there. But I'm like, oh, it'd be good for the user to have a way to go backwards, right? And it took a couple tries because it generates sometimes results and then it tests what it creates. And it's like, that didn't work out. That didn't work out. Let me try something else. And finally, it came up with something where now, as I click, I've got a back button here where I can go back and forth. It's not a great back button. I could iterate with it to like make it a better back button, but it's still a back button, right? So I'm like, okay, now I want a downloadable index file that I can use at Netlify. And it built it into an index file. And I tried it. But then I ran into an issue where at the final thing, when I like pick some stuff and I click on the see the impact, nothing is selected here, right? None of these options is selected. And if I click review my gift, it just picks randomly $100. And I'm like, if somebody enters a custom amount, say less than $10, reject it. So it says, okay, I can do that. It it took some tries. It had to rework things and eventually came to here. And I'm like, wait, that didn't work. It like failed. The V20 version gets a token error when I try and view it. And it's like, oh, okay, I know what the problem is there. And it finally fixed it. And this is that index.html file. This file, if you look inside it, has a whole bunch of JavaScript code. It's got a whole bunch of like the stuff that says how to draw everything here. I know JavaScript, but not well. I don't know what it's doing in here, but this thing actually works. Like I can work through this donation process. I can get here. It picks the second most expensive option for donations. I can say, yes, let's do $25 monthly. Review my gift. It generates this page showing what the summary is. And if I click here on this link, it actually takes me to this page. Sadly, the parameters for payloading in the amounts and everything don't work. I don't, I'd have to troubleshoot that. Maybe it doesn't support it and it'd be better to use a different donation page. But that whole thing right there that I just went through in real time for me took about 45 minutes. Right? So that's a guided like donor journey that I think could have real impact, like actually be really good for nonprofits in 45 minutes. Shivati, yes.
This is really awesome. So I've built some websites using drag and drop, software. And I was wondering, once the site is made, if you need to make changes later on because it's coded and it's not like what I'm used to dragging and dropping and changing text and stuff. And maybe this is for another time. I know we're short of time, so I can leave that question with you. Like, what happens when you want to make changes? Do I have to do it all over and drop a whole new index file?
There's two options, right? You can edit the index file. Like maybe there's a simple change on color, and if you know enough about CSS and styling of web pages, you just make the change on the file. Or more commonly, you go back to that chat I had, right, in Claude, it's still there. And I can say, I'd like you to make this change, and it will regenerate the index file with your change. You try it in Claude, looks good, push it to Netlify, and I have a new page.
Okay. But just that little section, you can.
Well, it builds a complete index.html file. Like it builds this file that's got everything in it, so it's self-contained.
Okay.
I give it to Netlify, it updates it, and boom, I have a new version.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. All right. So I did all of this that you saw here using Claude, right? So Claude is great for quick stuff, especially if it's internal. You get instant preview like you were seeing when I was actually working with Claude with the artifacts, and it's just part of your Claude plan. There's a next level up, or maybe up and sideways, which is Lovable. So Lovable gives you like integration with a database, like if you have to persist information that the user is interacting with. And it's more of a like guided environment. So it's easier in a lot of ways for people. Like I have a friend who's, I don't know, he helps at wineries selling wine. And he built this interactive site to teach people how to play Texas Hold'em poker. Like, and he's about as far away from a program as you can get. And he did it with Lovable. And so Lovable makes it easier to do more with less background or know-how. And you can actually have easily a custom domain, the whole bit. So great. Yeah, it's got 20% off nonprofit discount for at Lovable. There's Replit is another common vibe coding site. This typically costs more. It is more sophisticated, but it requires like more know-how to know how to use it. So it's for especially people who've got a little bit of programming background, but they don't want to deal with like website CSS styling, etc. Like Replit is probably what I would use if I got heavily into this. Yes, the slides will become available as part of the meetup artifact. And then there's this new one, which I haven't tried at all, called Bolt.new, that looks cool, The only downside is when it is interacting with the back end AI, all these sites, Lovable, Replit, and Bolt, are built on top of either Claude or ChatGPT. Like that's what they're using under the hood. They're just giving it a nicer interface. And with Bolt, you can very quickly get into like $200 a month in tokens for interacting with the back end AI, right? So there are some risks in that. And then you can deploy it if you're using Claude or some of these other ones. You can decide, do I want it for free, deploy on Netlify, like I was doing. There's this site Versal, GitHub Pages if you're into it. But um, it adds more complexity, right? So typically people just pay Lovable or Replit or Bolt to like handle all of that for them. And obviously, if you've got real users entering real data that you worry about, you want somebody to take a sniff at your code, like somebody who's an actual developer reviewing the code. It's kind of like updating your HR handbook for California code, right? You can use AI to create the draft, but you're still going to want a lawyer to review it because there are implications for getting it wrong. If there are implications for getting it wrong here, have somebody who's a real whatever developer review it. And then this last slide, it's like, hey, what would you build? Here are just some random ideas, on things. The volunteer matcher, you know, what skills and availability do you have? I've got a whole set of opportunities, let's say, at my nonprofit, and it would match you up. It'd be like, oh, here's a good one for you. I need somebody to do Facebook posts for me. Great. So grant screener, et cetera. You can read these, but these are just some of the many ideas of things you could create for your nonprofit. All right. That is the end of the presentation. I'm going to stop sharing here. Oh, yes. Thank you, Erica. The next meetup, before I forget, the next meetup is in a month, and I'm going to be talking about how I use AI to create presentation decks like the one you just saw in a fraction of the time that it used to take me. I swear that might be my current favorite use for AI because I used to live in fear of creating presentations. I would assume like, I don't know, 30 minutes per slide at least. So if it was a 20 slide deck, that's 10 hours of work. And instead now I can create a 20 slide deck in 20 minutes, like using AI, and it's pretty good. So anyway, that's what the next meetup's about.
Ken, there's one question I also want to let people know about some trainings that are coming up. There's going to be an AI in-depth training, which is the sequel to AI Essentials in Grass Valley, April 20th and 29th, and then another Essentials training in May, another AI in-depth online in May as well. So I posted those. You can get all this information on the AI for Community website on the events page. I posted a link there. If people have a few more minutes, maybe Ken, you could answer some questions for those who
Sure,
want to. Yeah, you got one
I
from Glenn.
successfully sucked out all the time. This is why we're thinking about an hour. Because I worked hard to make this like 10 slides, 2 demos, and it still wound up being like, I don't know, 35 minutes or more. So
Yeah.
apologies for that. But oh man, I just sliced the thinnest layer off the surface of this vibe coding topic. As you might expect,
Yeah.
it's wide and deep. I just wanted to give you a taste for it. Anyway,
We have a couple questions from Glenn and Amy in the chat.
okay. Let me take a look at the chat then, so I can answer those. Okay. Okay. Yes, we'll get the slides. Lovable.
So with the first Claude example, can that integrate to a Google spreadsheet? Glenn is asking.
Yes, there is a way to do that, and Claude tells you how to do that. It actually writes the Google Apps script code and tells you how, okay, you create a sheet, you put the Google script code in there, you have to share it a certain way. That's what I did, exactly what I did for integrating my AI readiness form with a Google Sheet.
Thanks.
Thank you. And then Amy has a multi-part question. You chose to use deep research as an artifact for the Center for Ecoliteracy example. What input did you use for the custom connections example, and what drives this choice to use artifacts or something else?
So what input did I use for the custom connections example? I first worked in Claude Artifact to create a document that described the business. I said, here's my idea, ask me questions about it. And it asked me questions and I answered the questions and it built out that business plan. Then I went to Gemini Deep Research and I said, here's this business idea, do competitive research for me. Who are my competitors? Why are they competitors? You know, pricing, et cetera. I took that and gave it back to Claude to update the business plan. You know, so now I've got a better business plan. Then I did that pre-mortem to like, why was it going to fail? That's a great example of the danger of a biased prompt. Because when I first had Claude create that business plan, I said, give me a 12-month business plan. So it's a biased prompt. It assumes it's 12 months and it's just me. As part of doing that pre-mortem, it said that time window is too tight and this is really hard to do as a one-person deal because there's two very different roles. There's like sales and then there's implementation and operations, right? And so I had to adapt. I used a biased prompt to find the negative outcomes of my initial biased prompt on creating the business plan, where I assumed one person, 12 months, it would work. I gave it that, and it's like, okay, here's how we can make it work, even if it was unrealistic. So anyway, so that's examples of me iterating on it, and then I used it to create the examples of questions and the personas for people who might be buyers of this t-shirt, you know, et cetera. Yeah. I'm going to reference this video. I start playing. Gotta find another meeting. So adios. Okay, Anjali left.
I think you answered all the questions, unless there are other people who have questions.
Yeah. Anybody want to? Yes.
Tom has his hand up. Tom, you're on mute.
I'm trying. Thank you. Yeah, when you did the t-shirt design, is Custom Connection a t-shirt design program or?
That's my site. That's me. I decided I'm creating a company and AI came up with the name for it. AI said, call this Custom Connections.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, if I wanted to design a t-shirt, where would I start?
You would, well, I don't have that site up. You know,
I mean, did I ask Claude to design a t-shirt or what?
Oh no, you would use my site to design the t-shirt. I still have to hook it up to the back-end companies that actually print t-shirts, but I would work with Claude to do that. There is extra complexity when you start talking to external services that I did not get into. For example, I tried hooking up that t-shirt custom connections site to Claude so that the answers you gave it, it could create kind of fun phrases instead of just exactly what you typed in. Like zizzle up the answers. Like it's not just I'm born in Whittier, like Whittier rocks, you know, or whatever, coming up with variants of it. But calling to Claude from a web page gets much more complicated. So,
well, basically, the reason I'm asking is that I use t-shirts. They're walking, talking billboards.
Yep.
And I had one for the last organization I ran, and now I need to design a new one. And I was kind of asking where would I start?
Oh, so I can share as part of what I'm sharing the report I did on competitors, because I think it mentions some people that places where you can already go to create a custom t-shirt. So in the report, that'll be part of what's shared.
Okay, well, because I have a designer, she's great.
Yeah. So there's a
need
site
to give us a kind of mock-up.
Yeah. You can upload a file, an SVG file, etc., that they use to print the t-shirt or high-res PNG. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not worried about getting the thing manufactured. Worried about getting the thing designed.
Well, you could use ChatGPT. I'd probably use to create an image for the t-shirt.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Don't forget to add a feature to send a royalty to the person with the idea.
Oh, right. Sorry, Glenn. Yes. There's like it could be like Zephy, like, would you like to make a donation to the person with the original idea? Add a little tiny amount. Yeah.
All right. Any other questions for Ken?
Yeah, I guess I have one. Ken, you manage Claude Artifacts and Claude Code and Claude Work, and how do you decide which one of those you're going to use? I know they're changing and coming up. You know, every day there's a new one.
Right.
What specifically those I had never heard of Claude Artifact. Obviously heard of Claude Code and Claude Work. So yeah.
So Cloud Artifact is good for like a quick, simple web app because you see it sort of on the side panel as you're iterating with it. Um, if I was doing heavy coding, obviously I'd use the Claude desktop app in code mode. Claude Cowork, which is what I used, is sort of a sandbox version of Claude Code, like a safer version of it, where you don't have to worry so much about Claude maybe accidentally deleting all your files if things go wrong. So I did it in Cowork. Also because I just wanted to try out Cowork for something. Like a lot of these meetups, I love it because it's like, and it forces me to do things that I wouldn't have done otherwise. So thank you for motivating me to like actually dig into this stuff.
Thank you, Ken, for another fantastic presentation. Oh, Sanford, you had a question?
Do you have any thoughts about should there be concern about what we upload to do this work being used for training or anything like that?
So a paid Claude account does not use your data to train its models. And in fact, for all three of the AI services, that's true. If it's a paid plan, you know, your data isn't used to train the models. For the free plans, you sometimes have to opt out. I think for ChatGPT, you have to opt out. Um, I think the rule of thumb I use is if you're okay with your data being in Google Drive, or it's an email, or it's an attachment to an email, or it's in Google Calendar or SharePoint, these are all cloud-based services. If you're okay with that, you should be okay with giving it to AI, assuming it's not being used to train the model.
Well, I understand that Gmail, I think you just mentioned, is read and utilized for like advertising purposes.
Oh, it definitely it can be used for advertising, and it can be used like it reads your content so that its AI agent can answer questions about your email. So I kind of have to assume everything I upload gets read, but the question is, will it get exfiltrated?
Exfiltrated.
Exfiltrated, thank you. Does it get exposed externally to me or the back-end company in any possible way? And in my class, I talk about this, data privacy. Like if you're worried, for example, about a data warrant exposing data, like let's say you work with Dreamers and ICE goes to Google and says, hey, give me all your data, they would have to provide it. So if you're worried about that, then you wouldn't upload your data in any form to that kind of data to any cloud provider because there are data warrants.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
This was really great. So I now second all those people who think Ken is great.
Absolutely.
That was
I would like to meet you sometime. I'm one of those people who hasn't.
Okay, well, if you go out for coffee in the morning in Nevada City, you'll probably run into me at some point because I'm there pretty often.
Perfect.
Yes.
Otherwise, we'll see you on May 28th at the next meetup.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Bye.
you.